Alright guys, welcome to another weekly focus. I hope you had a great week. So as usual, we're going to look at the DXY, the S&P, NAS, US30 and gold. And before doing that, let's do a quick trade recap and I'll show you the positions I had. So I'll start with the gold one. So this is the same position I've been holding for over 4 weeks now, and I'm going to show you guys. We got in December 19 and I've been holding this position ever since. So currently I haven't updated this right now, but if you look at the gold chart right now, you notice we're very close to these highs right here. So price is around an area like this, so we're just, let's say, 1% shy from hitting the target on this position. So that's the gold one. So I'm still holding this, and I had my stops move to break even already. So this position is currently running at risk free and I haven't done anything on it. So stop loss move to break even. Depending on what price does, we might be closing this manually, but I'll just give it some time just to see what happens around the target point. Alright guys, so that's the gold one. And for US30, we went in on the buys as well for US30 January 14 right here. So we had the buys for US30 and I'm still holding these buys as well. So if you look at this, same thing, price took off and we're close to this point right now on US30. So we might have, let's say, some minor pullbacks and for price to continue moving again to the upside. That's a possibility. Now if this doesn't happen, you might see prices just tanking again to the downside, but we'll do the analysis, we'll do the focus, and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at and if I decide to hold these positions a little bit longer. So that's it for the trade recap. So just 2 positions. The first one on gold, I've been holding it since December 19 and the stops is at break even already. Now you have the US30 one. I haven't moved my stops to break even yet, so I'll look at it maybe after the market focus. That's what I'll probably do. Alright, let me do this real quick. So let's start here. Alright guys, so let's look at the DXY. So this is the first pair we look at every single time, and we've been analyzing the DXY for a very long time now. This price action hasn't really changed a lot, so we're still seeing the same price action thing. You have this impulse, you have a correction, you have this area set right here where price took off. So now you have another impulse and you're having a correction again. So once you have something like this, the anticipation is for prices to make new highs. So if we're making new highs, we're supposed to take out this area and we're supposed to test 120. So that's normally supposed to be like the structure play without any difficulties, without any hesitation. But when you look at what's happening right now, so this is a daily time frame on the DXY. When you look at what's happening right now, so price played from this area of 100 all the way to 110. So just looking at it from the daily time frame and using the same principles we'll be talking about. So you have your psychological levels and you have your trend line. So where is price at and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So price played all the way from 100 to 110. There was an inability for prices to go through 110. So just looking at this, if price finds it difficult to go through 110, then you might see this drop coming back to 100. So if I clean this, and you can zoom in on this piece of price action, so you can zoom in here to see what's actually happening. So let's zoom in on an area like this, so right here, and you can use a trend line as well just to visualize and see what's happening actually. So you're looking at this, you have the psychological level of 110 right here, an inability for prices to go through 110. You're expecting prices to come back all the way to 100. Now when you look at the big picture thing, so what's the big picture thing on the DXY? So again, the big picture thing, or the bigger move on the DXY, is you have this price moving to the upside, giving you periods of consolidation. You have this moving to the upside, there's a period of consolidation. So now look at this. Every time you have this massive move and you had, let's say you had this inability here, you had this deeper pullback. So you're looking at the same thing. You've had this massive move, you had the consolidation, an inability for prices to take out this area. We might see these deeper pullbacks coming in. First, we're testing this level of 100, and then next you're looking at this trend line right here. So this is still a possibility. So we might be coming into a phase where we see the DXY pulling back like really deep, all the way to 100. And when you look at other pairs, it might start making sense, because if the DXY has this potential to pull back, like this massive pullback on the DXY, then you might see some buys again on those other pairs. So looking at this, you can't just wait for this to happen on the daily time frame, because it's very massive as well. So you probably have to scale down to lower time frames. But if you look at this structure again, there's an impulse right here, slow correction, dip pullback. You're looking at an impulse right here. You had this slow correction coming in, so you might be having a deeper pullback. So that's the same structure I'm looking at on the DXY, and so I'm still looking at these possibilities for the DXY to sell. Now if the DXY goes above 110, so if the DXY goes above 110, which is a psychological level right here, where do you think price is then going to gravitate to? If it goes above 110, so let's say price pulls back to an area like this, you might get a test of this area, taking out these highs, and you should see prices headed to 120. So that's the possibility on the DXY. But now if the DXY stays below, let's say the DXY stays below this 110 level, you might see a pullback thing like this, giving you a test of this level, and you see prices dropping to this psychological level of 100, and even a possibility for us to test this area. If we see something like this, you might then look for another move again to the upside, or you get this break, you get a test, and you see prices coming down. So this is just like the focus thing, and you're just looking at the possibilities. You're trying to see what price is most likely going to do. So once you have something like this, you can already plan ahead. So you're looking at this every time you come, you look at the chart, you're looking at the possibilities, what this price most likely going to do, where is price most likely going to gravitate to. And once you have this mapped out already, it becomes very easy. So if we see prices going above 110, I know what I'm looking for. If prices stay below 110, I know where I'm headed to. If price gets to this psychological level here, to this area, I know what I'm looking for, like this possible move again. And if price drops again lower, I know what I'm looking for. So you need to map these things out, and you need to have your game plan. It's very important. So once you have your game plan, it makes it completely easy. So that's the game plan thing for me on the DXY. And you can step down to lower time frames now if you really want to, but just looking at this on the daily time frame, it makes it completely easy. But you can step down to lower time frames if you want to see like the proper structure and everything. So once we step down to the lower time frame, this piece right here is what I'll pay attention to. So if I take this out and let's step down, let's say to the 8-hour time frame. So on the 8-hour time frame, what we're looking at right here, so price has given you the same structure, or like a similar structure. So price showed you already. There's a move to the upside, there's a pullback, there's a move to the upside, there's a pullback, there's a move to the upside, you get a pullback. So if you put a trend line here, you'll probably see what's happening. So I'm going to do it properly. So you put a trend line here. So we're looking at this structure from 100 flat all the way to 110. You put your trend line and you see what price is doing. So now when you put your trend line here and you see price violating this trend line already, now the reaction is most people look at this as the sellers coming in. So you might see lots of people anticipating these sells already to the downside, but then you need to pause a little bit. So look at this. Once you have this trend line moving to the upside, once you get this violation, you need to give these guys, the guys who did the buys, you need to give them another opportunity to see if they're still interested in the buys. So maybe these guys can attempt again and take the buys to the upside. That's one possibility. Or do the buys to an area like this, there's an inability, then you see prices pulling to the downside. So once you have a break of a trend line, it's very important you look at both sides of the coin. So the first one, price can just take off to the upside. That's one. Another possibility, you see price pulling back, giving you this inability, then you get the drop. So that's what I'm looking at on the DXY. So my first buyers on this, or let's go my major buyers on this. So looking at this, we went through we came very close to this psychological level right here. We came close to the psychological level of 110. We had a trend line and we had a trend line violation. So just looking at this, going off of structure and still giving price the opportunity to test 110. So what I'll be looking at on this pair is very simple. So I'm looking at something like this. So this move right here is what I'll be looking at. So this possibility, so I'm looking at the possibility for a test again of this psychological level of 110. So if there is a possibility for us to see this level getting tested, then that's what I'll be looking for. So once you see price coming close to this area, can you give me another testing? So if you give me a test of this area and inability for prices to go through, then I'm looking for the drop to the downside. So that's what I'm looking at currently on the DXY on the 8-hour time frame. So you can step down to lower time frames and it's still going to be the same picture thing. So we're not switching it. So if you step down to the 4-hour time frame, you're looking at this, same thing. So you get a violation, let's see a correction, let's see a corrective move, and inability for prices to go through 110, then we might see now prices drop into the downside. And this aligns with what's happening on the daily time frame. So if you look at this on the daily time frame, and I mentioned this already, you have this impulse, you have this correction, you have price coming up. So if this price goes above 110, we might take out this area and we'll see prices headed all the way to 120. And inability for prices to go through 110, then you might see prices coming back here. Another attempt for prices to go to the upside. So this is what I'm looking at on the DXY. So the first thing is we need to clear this piece of price action right here. We need to complete this piece. Once we complete this piece, then we might see prices delivering back to the higher time frame, and for us to take, let's say, the buys from that area. All right guys, so that's it for me on the DXY. I think it's pretty easy, it's pretty straightforward. So coming into next week, I'll step down, let's say, the 4-hour time frame, and I'll pay attention to what's happening on the 4-hour time frame. So I have this minor trend line here. I've been watching this trend line as price has been moving to the upside. Now we have this violation of the trend line. We have this psychological level here. So possibilities, you see the corrective move coming. Inability, you see price drop into the downside to the next psychological level. So that's what I'm looking at on the DXY. So once you have this analysis on the DXY, it makes it completely easy. So here's my primary buyers on the DXY, and inability for prices to go through 110, we'll see prices drop into the downside. So that's it for me on the DXY. Now let's look at the first pair, and this one is US30. So I had the buy positions on US30. I showed you guys this already. So you're looking at this right here. So you're looking at US30. I had those buys on US30 right here. So let's come back to the charts and I'll show you what we're looking at. So here's the daily time frame. So now ask yourself simple questions. Where is price at? Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? And I'm going to show you guys again the DXY, and just look at what's happening on the DXY. You might understand why we should be expecting pullbacks on these other pairs. So you're looking at this from the daily time frame. What is price doing? Where is price at? And where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So you're looking at this structure right here. You get this impulse, there's a swing move, you get a consolidation, you get a pivot point set, you get a swing move, you see prices coming back to an area like this, pivot point, so you should expect the buys again. So when I took these buys here, I was expecting prices to have a test of 45,000 and a test of these highs. So currently we're sat at an area like this. So what is price most likely going to do, and how is it going to gravitate to the next area? So first of all, where is the next area price can gravitate to? Looking at this on the daily time frame, the most reasonable area price can gravitate to is this area, 45,000. That psychological level, price can gravitate to this psychological level. Now, how is price going to come to this area? So we might see something like this. So you might get a minor pullback and you see prices get into this area. So that's a possibility. But then you need to understand again what's happening on the DXY. So I'm going to show you this. This is the DXY thing on the 4-hour time frame. We had this area right here, 110. We might see a possible move again. for price to test this area, and then an inability, you see the drop. So I'm still heavy, or like my buyers on the DXY, I'm still heavy on this move to the upside. So for some reason, I know this corrective move on the DXY has to come in. We should give these guys another attempt, see if they can go through 110, an inability to go through 110, then we might see the drop coming in. So when you look at US30, if those buys have to come in on the DXY, so if we get those buys coming in on the DXY to test 110, you might see these guys pulling back to an area like this. Now this is beautiful because once you have a pullback to an area like this, there's just two things that's possible at this point. You might see the buyer stepping in again impulsively, but then the first level I want to pay attention again to is 45,000. An inability of a price to do this, then you might see this crash coming in. You get a test and you see prices headed all the way to 40,000. So that's it for me on US30. It makes it completely easy. So now you can look at this on lower time frames and just see what's happening. So let's say I take out this and let's deal with this piece right here. So you get this move, consolidation thing, pivot set, you get a swing, price pulls back to the pivot point, and you're expecting prices to take out this highs, you're expecting prices to test this area. So let's look at this on on a lower time frame, let's say the 8-hour time frame, and see what's happening. All right, cool. So this is what we're looking at, and you can start putting trend lines or just minor trend lines to visualize and see what's happening, or to make it completely easy for you to anticipate the next move. So you look at this move right here. So we had this pullback and you're expecting prices to launch from this pivot point and take prices all the way above 45,000, or as a bare minimum have a test of 45,000. So for you to visualize this move to the upside and for you to see where price starts finding it difficult, you can put a minor trend line within this area. So to do something like this, the 8-hour time frame is not the best time frame for you to visualize this. So you can step down, let's say the 4-hour time frame, or maybe the hourly. Yeah, so you can look at this. So look at this on the hourly time frame. So put a trend line here, right here. So if you put your trend line here, again, the trend line is just for you to visualize what is happening. When you look at this entire move, so we had the buys at an area like this. We had this buys here. What was the anticipation for prices to test 45,000 and to test this highs? And inability for prices to do something like this, you should see prices drop into the downside. So when you put this trend line here, your anticipation is, or you're telling yourself, if price breaks out of this trend line, so if you get something like this, you can see price breaking out of this trend line, you might see a pullback, inability for price to move to the upside, and you see prices dropping again to the downside. So how do you get ready, or is there a possibility for you to trade this currently? So if I see something like this, so if I see this inability for prices to move to the upside on US30, knowing that the DXY has to move again to the upside, just for the DXY to complete this move, and then an inability for the drop, knowing that the DXY has this potential to move to the upside, now you can look at this on US30 and anticipate these sales coming in. So you're looking at this, so there's a possibility, let's say you get something like this. So you can put your stops here, take it above, it just depends on you, but again, bottom line is you're looking for these sales. You can put your stops above this area. Now the stop placement depends on you. So, and this is why it becomes very important. So personally, I'm going to show you guys what I was looking at on US30. I needed this test on US30, so I needed prices to test at least 45,000, test these highs, and then an inability for price to go through this area, then I can look for the sales. So personally for me, while I was looking at this pair, I was expecting prices to move all the way to the upside. So I'll put this right here. So I was expecting prices again to pull back, giving us a structure move like this, then this inability for us to take these sales. So personally, this is what I like to see, a move like this, because I need these stops to be above this area. This is the most protected spot for me. Then you can look at the sales to the downside, and this right here, it's around a 1:5.75%. So if price finds it difficult to go through this area and you see the sales coming in, personally I might understand price is going to sell, but it might be difficult for me to take the sell just because of the position or the area where price is at. And so that's something I'll probably just stand aside and see what's happening. So I would like a pullback, or I would like prices to move all the way to 4,500. Once I get this inability price coming out breaking, then I can look for those sells. So personally, that's what I'll look for. But again, if you see this inability here and you know price is going to drop, you wait for this trend line to get validated, look at the DXY, see what's happening on the DXY. If this price keeps moving to the upside, just so we can have a test of 110 before the drop to the downside, then you can look for your sells on US30. So that's a possibility right there. So it makes it completely easy as well when you look at the DXY and then you look at these other pairs, because if you time the DXY properly, it makes it completely easy for you to get perfect or almost perfect entries on these other pairs. So that's it for me on US30. And again, you can look at it on higher time frames. So you look at this on the daily. So let's see. So you look at this on the daily. So we're still headed to the upside. So I'm gonna keep this on the hourly. I'll take this as monthly and keep it on the hourly all the way to like the 4 hours. Right there. All right guys, so this is what I'm looking at on US30. So the overall movement thing on US30, price is still moving to the upside. So you cannot beat these buyers, first of all. So impulse, correction, price takes off, impulse, pullback, you're expecting price to take off. So I'll be heavy on the sells on US30 if we start breaking out of this area and pulling back, then we might start seeing deeper pullbacks like this. But currently I'm just gonna get like minor sells. So if you're taking sells on this pair, you might see the sells coming in to an area like this. You see price moving again to the upside, or you see price testing these lows, a deeper one, and you still see prices moving again to the upside. So those are still possibilities, and they've still higher chances for us selling depending on what's happening on the DXY. So let me think. I think I can show you guys the next pair, and that has to be NAS100. So here's NAS100. Now looking at NAS100 on the daily time frame, this is really lining up properly. When you look at the DXY, you look at what's happening on US30, the S&P500. If I have to take sales, I'll most likely take the sales on NAS100. This is lining up perfect compared to what's happening on US30. So look at this structure thing on the daily time frame. You get your impulse, you get a correction, you get this impulse, you get this correction, you get this impulse. So looking at this, you're normally expecting a correction to an area like this and for prices to move again to the upside. So where is price at? Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Looking at this on the daily time frame, we just went through the psychological level of 2000. Still within this impulsive move, price is consolidating. Now the possibility is, or the most likely thing is, price has to gravitate to 25,000. Now for this to happen, you need pullbacks to come in. You might see some period of consolidation, but looking at it from the bigger point of view, like the daily time frame, if you have a trend line thing here, you're looking at this trend line, you know price takes off once you have your impulse, correction, pivot. When price starts pulling back to areas like this, just looking at this on the daily time frame, you're expecting a pullback to an area like this and for prices to continue to move again to the upside. Now once you start looking at this and you go back and you do a reference on what's happening on the DXY, if you get this movement to the upside or some push to the upside from the DXY, you might then see these pullbacks coming in on pairs like NAS100. So this right here is lining up properly for me. So you get this impulse, you get a pullback. Normally you should see prices taking out this highs. So once you see this inability, there's this difficulty for price to go through this area. That's an early indication we might see prices pulling back to an area like this. So let's step down to lower time frames and I'll show you. if there's any possibility for us to look at sales and stuff like that. So you step down to the 8-hour time frame, and this is what I'm looking at. So you see this minor structure right here. There's a minor trend line right here. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Knowing where price is most likely going to head to, and if the DXY starts buying and you're expecting or you're anticipating sales to come in on these other pairs. So hold on, you have this area right here, and you can probably look at this on the 4-hour time frame because it's going to make more sense on lower time frames. So let's step down to the 4-hour time frame. Cool. So you're looking at this right here. Now you know there's a possibility, I mentioned this already, there's a possibility for prices to pull back to this trend line and for these buyers to take prices again to the upside. So if you're trying to get involved in a situation like this, you might wait for this trend to get violated. You get something like this until you're looking at these sales all the way to the downside. So this is a good one for me, something like this. And you're looking at, let's say, risk to reward of about 1:3. So just keep it simple. Now if price keeps respecting this area, so you see price moving to the upside, taking out this area right here, pulling back, moving to the upside, taking out this area. So hold on, that's messy. So you see price moving to the upside. We took out this area here, took out this area, took out this area. Now there's an inability for prices to take out this area. So if we get a push to the downside, you might look for something like this on NAS100. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS100. So just this inability for prices to move to the upside, we'll get a push so we can come back to this area right here. But then you need to understand, like, the reason I'm looking for sales on this pair is because of what's happening on higher time frames. Let's say the daily time frame. So what the daily time frame telling me, you're looking at this structure on the daily time frame, and you can keep your analysis very simple. You can make your analysis very complex. It all depends on you. Personally, I like having simple analysis. So you look at this move to the upside, you had this pullback, you've seen this move to the upside, and you're expecting at some point for prices to pull back to an area like this and for us to take this bias. So once you have this bias on the daily time frame and you know where price is headed to, so we went through 20,000. Where is price most likely going to head to? Price is most likely going to head to 25,000. But then it's very difficult for prices to keep launching or like to the upside. So you need to have pullbacks, or you need to see pullbacks coming in. So you might take these pullbacks as discounts and then get in again on the buys. So you step down to the 8-hour time frame, you start looking at the structure thing. Keep it simple, like keep it really simple. So as price starts moving again to the upside, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, once you see this break, an inability for prices to take out these highs, you understand this might be an early indication for us to get temporary sales again to an area like this. Then we take this buys. As you step down to lower time frames, let's say the 4-hour time frame, you start looking at the structure thing that's playing out here. So you need to see this inability for prices to head to the upside, like completely. Because at this point, price is taking out these areas, price is taking out these highs, price is taking out these highs. So looking at this right here, we've had this inability for prices to take out these highs, and I'm still paying attention to these highs right here. So if this trend line stays intact, so let's say there's no violation of this trend line, then you might see prices, let's see, you might see prices pulling back to an area like this, which is what price has done, and you see price taking out these highs right here. And if this happens, you might get this, you get a pullback again, and you see prices headed to the upside. So that's it. So if you see something like this, walk away, don't take these sales. But then if you see price breaching this minor trend line that we're looking on the 4-hour time frame and on the hourly time frame, you can wait for then, let's say, pull back a retest and stuff like this. So you just get something like this, you get a break retest, and you're waiting for prices to drop again to the downside. Now you need to understand, if you take these sales, you're taking these sales as temporary sales. So these are just temporary sales. So you're not holding this for too long, you're not holding this for like a swing move. And sometimes you might see these sellers coming in and you see this inability without prices getting to an area like this, and it caps from an area like that. Sometimes it might come really close to taking this out. It caps at an area like this. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you eventually get these sells, you need to manage it accordingly, because it's not a swing move, it's just a temporal sell coming in for the buyers to kick in again. So you're looking at this as a counter move to the overall structure you're looking on the daily time frame. So that's my analysis on NAS100, and if I had to take positions in, that's what I'll probably be looking at to get, let's say, temporal sales, and once the sales are completed, I'll look for the buys again. Now coming into next week, if there is let's say if there's some difficulty for me to get the sales, if the sales do not line up properly, I'll walk away and wait for prices to drop. Then I look for the buys. If price keeps moving to the upside, I walk away. So that's what I'm looking at on NAS100, and we can look at the next pair, which is the S&P 500. Yeah, I'm a little bit quick with the analysis today because I have somewhere to go to. So I hope this is on the daily time frame. Same thing on the S&P 500. So now when you look at the S&P 500, NAS and US30, NAS for me has the better sell lining up compared to the S&P and US30. So look at this structure right here. Look at this structure. You get this impulse move right here. You get a pullback, you get this impulse, you get a pullback. So normally, once you had a pullback here, so you see this and price starts taking up on the daily time frame. Now the question is, where is price most likely going to gravitate to? We're playing above 6,000. So the next area price can get to is 6,500. How is price going to get to 6,500? You might see a pullback all the way to 6,000 and for this to happen, or you see prices pulling back to this trend line and for this to happen. So this is what you're looking at already on the daily time frame. So you have your daily, or like the directional buyers on your highest time frame, and you can start moving to lower time frames to see if there's any possibility for you to spot those entries, like the timing thing, to do it perfectly. So this is it. You're looking at this on the daily time frame. Impulse correction, impulse correction. You understand again what's happening on the DXY. There's a possibility for this guy to move to the upside. Again, this guy can just drop to the downside. That's still very okay, but I know what I'm looking for. I would like to see this coming back to the upside, just so we can get a test of this area and inability, then we'll take the drop. So looking at this, comparing it to what's happening on the S&P 500 and what's happening on NAS100. So we had this impulse right here and we had a correction. So at the back of my mind, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, every time price pulls back to an area like this, you have an impulsive move coming in. So we had a pullback like this. So normally I'm expecting this highs here to get taken out. So we get the next impulse all the way to 6,500. So if price finds it difficult, first of all, to go through an area like this, this could be an early indication for us to get temporal pullbacks, or maybe a pullback to an area like this. Then you look at this buys coming in. So if you look at this space again on the 8-hour time frame, so let's see, put this on the 8-hour time frame, and just a similar move of what's happening on NAS100, you can look at this minor trend right here. So there's a minor trend. You get a violation, temporal sales, maybe to an area like this, pulling back up to an area like that. So let's step down to the 4-hour time frame and I'll show you guys what I'm looking at, and if there's a possibility for us to look for sales or to continue with the buys. So just put your trend line thing this way, just like the visual representation thing. If you get this area getting violated, you might see those pullbacks coming in. You're taking the sales. So this is the reason why I don't like the sales on the S&P 500. It might be the better sales, but I don't like this. So the reason is because we have this trend line here. So it might be difficult for us to take out these lows compared to what's happening on NAS. So if you're looking for the sales on the S&P 500, same thing compared to NAS, you might cap at an area like this. So that's it. So you're looking at this now. This is like 1:6. Okay, something like this. Now this doesn't mean you get a 1:6, because sometimes price might pull back and you only get an entry around here. So maybe 1:3, but fair enough. Yeah, compare this with what's happening on NAS100. So I think this position on NAS100 is better because we can attempt, or we can look for sales to take out these lows without facing so much resistance from this trend line thing moving to the upside. So that's just the possibilities I'm looking at. But on the S&P, I know it might be a little bit too tricky with this one. So on the S&P 500, first we look for this temporal sales. If there is a possibility for us to get the sales, you can look for this temporal sales on the S&P 500. Once price pulls back to this trend line, the same principle thing, same thought process. If price doesn't take out this low, if price doesn't break out of this area, then you're looking for a movement again to the upside, unless you get price pulling back to this area and there's this difficulty of a price to go through this area, pulling back difficulty, and just you're seeing this inability, then you might see those sales coming in. But you need to take it one step at a time. And so the first step on the S&P 500 is for us to look for, let's say, the sales. We get this temporal sales coming in. If we get a breach of this trend line right here, we get this temporal sales coming in, then we'll take the buys. Now if this doesn't happen, you might see price just holding at an area like this, and you see the buyers kicking in for that continuation move again to the upside. So if something like this happens, so you're looking at a move like this, pulling back and giving you the structure right here. So if you get something like this, so this inability for us to get these sales, then you might look at this and start looking for possibilities to go in with a buy as price moves again to the upside. So there's many areas you can take the buys from, but I'm going to tell you, you have these highs right here with price testing these highs. It might be risky for you to buy from an area like this, because once price got to this area, we had these sellers reacting from that area right there. So you should expect sellers to come in again, just giving you a reaction or just showing you if the sellers still have the same power and the same momentum to take prices to the downside as it did during this period right here. So an inability for now these sellers to take these prices to the downside, then you're looking for those buys again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking on the S&P 500, and let's just keep it simple and see. If price breaks, you get a retest, you look for those sales to come in, then you start spotting, let's say, possibilities for us to take prices again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at on the S&P 500. So we can look at the last one. So give me a second. Yeah, so we can look at the last one, and that has to be gold. So looking at this on the daily time frame, pretty good price action. There's not so much you can look at in terms of resistance, but again, there's still possibilities for sales to come in on gold. There's possibilities for sales on US30, NAS100, and the S&P 500. So look at this, NAS100. So this, I'm going to come back to this, but look at this on gold. So this is the daily time frame. So what you're looking at, where is price at, where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So you're looking at this impulse right here. You look at this, you get a correction. You look at this, price is giving you this impulse. So I have this trend line I've been watching on gold. So my anticipation is price could pull back to an area like this, trying to test or take out these lows, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So the bigger picture thing on gold is we're moving to the upside. If we're moving to the upside, where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Price has to gravitate, or most likely gravitate to, 3,000. So we're coming off of 2,500. We had an impulse, inability for sellers to take prices lower. So where is price headed to? Price is headed to 3,000. Now, how is price going to get to 3,000? We might see temporal sales coming in. Same thing with what's happening on NAS100, the S&P 500, and US30. You might see temporal sales coming in, and for prices to move again to the upside. So while you're looking at this, you're paying attention again to what's happening on the DXY. If you see the DXY pulling back to the upside, then you might see this temporal sales coming in on gold. You get this temporal sales. When you spot what's happening again on the DXY, if it pulls up and starts dropping, then you might see gold doing the same thing, temporal sales, and then a continuation move again all the way to 3,000. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Step down to lower time frames, like say the 8-hour time frame, and just ask yourself, is there a trend line you can look at that helps, or that gives you this visual representation of what's happening? So you put your trend line right here, just put a minor trend line right here, and you're not worried about what's happening you're not trying to rush your entries on this pairs. You just put a trend line thing right here and you spot on this. You're watching what price is doing. So as price moves to this area right here, it keeps moving to the upside, right? So let's put this, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so we'll see what we're playing with. And you know what, let's look at this on the 4-hour time frame, because you probably get a better view on the 4-hour time frame. So you have this corrective move coming in, and so you're spotting this corrective move. So every time price takes out, so price pulls back, it takes out this area, you get a pull back, taking out this area, you get a pull back, taking out this area, same thing, taking out this area, taking out this area right here. So what you're expecting prices to pull back and take out this high. So this is what you're expecting. But then if you see this happening and an inability of prices to take out this area, this highs right here, you might see prices pulling back, and then you're looking for those sells. So that's it. And this is just the same thing I'm looking at on, let's say, the S&P 500. So you're looking at maybe sells from an area like this, and just get a stop loss at a protected level and put it right there, and you're looking at this movement to the downside. So worst case scenario, you might get, let's say, 1:3 if this starts dropping properly. So just remember again, guys, you're looking for this as temporal sells, and it's not the major move thing, it's not a swing move, it's just a temporal sell thing. So this is what I'm looking at on gold. So on most of these pairs, I'm looking for like pullbacks to come in, and then I'm looking for prices to resume again in its initial direction. So that's my analysis right here on gold. I'm just trying to keep it simple. So while you're waiting for this to happen, you need to pay attention to the bigger structure thing. Ask yourself at every single time, what's the daily time frame doing? Where is price headed to? And what is price most likely gonna do? How is price gonna head to this area? What is the DXY doing? So you're looking at this, what's the DXY doing? How is the DXY gonna move to its next level? So you look at this on the daily time frame. What's the DXY doing? I'm gonna put this on the hourly, take this off, keep this, yeah, right here. So you're looking at this on the DXY on the daily time frame. What is this guy doing? How is this guy gonna move to the next level? So you're looking at this right here, impulse on the DXY, correction, expecting this move, and inability for this to happen. You're expecting this drop and this to probably happen. So once you do this, you step down to the 4-hour time frame and just gauge, like let's say you're looking at this structure right here. How is this guy gonna move? The same question, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction, and inability. You get this. So where is price most likely gonna go to? It has to be 110, and inability for prices to go through 110, you're expecting prices to drop. So that's why once you step down to pairs like gold and stuff like this, now you're anticipating these pullbacks to come in, because you have a reason to anticipate in these pullbacks. You're looking at the DXY telling you what the dollar is doing, if it's gaining strength or if it's weakening. So you're looking at all these things, you're putting these things together, and so once you spot these pullbacks coming in on other pairs, you have some kind of confidence, and you understand if it starts happening, and if it starts pulling back, you understand why this might not be a major crash to the downside, because you have this trend line here, you have this psychological level here. So price pulling back to an area like this, there's a lot happening here that can influence price again to move to the upside. So you step down 4-hour time frame, ask yourself, is there a possibility for you to get temporal sells? And how do you spot this coming in? You're looking at price making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. So normally you should get a pullback and you see price moving again to the upside. So an inability for this to happen, you see price breaking or violating, you see this test, and then you expect prices to sell again just a little bit to the downside. So I think that's it, guys, and it makes it completely easy. So when you look at, I think that's it for gold. I did this on gold already, and I said I'll show you guys something on US30. So just like the other pairs, if you step down to the 4-hour time frame on US30, all right, cool. So I had this already. Yeah, so you're looking at all these possibilities, maybe some temporal sells on US30. You're looking at temporal sells on NAS100. Just if you get a break of this area, you're looking at temporal sells on the S&P 500 as well. And all this just depends on what's happening on the DXY, because if the DXY moves to the upside, giving us this temporal sells, then you can get this temporal sells on these pairs. But you need to be careful, guys. So let's say you know where the DXY is headed to, you know what you are expecting, but it doesn't mean every violation, let's say it doesn't mean a violation here and this pullback just means you're going in for the sales. You need to look at the DXY, understand where the DXY is at, because you might get a DXY pulling up and just giving you a minor push for that continuation, or you see the DXY pulling up a little bit and start dropping again impulsively. So you need to pay attention, put this pair aside, like put the pair you're looking at, put the DXY on the other side, look at it closely and have a proper dissection of the charts from the highest time frame coming down to the lowest time frame. But this is what I'm looking at. If I had to look for sales on a pair like this, and it's just, where is price headed to? Is there a psychological level I can look at, like a target point? Is there a trend line I can use to visualize the inability of price moving to the upside or to the downside? And if this happens, I'll wait for this violation, I'll wait for those pullbacks. And that's why you see I have this lined up for the sales, I have this lined up for sales, just possible sales. The S&P, the NAS, possible sales as well. So that's what I'm looking at on this pairs. And if it happens, I'll see if I get a good risk to reward and I'll get those sales coming in. The favorite one for me has to be NAS100. If I can get good sales on NAS100, I'll take it. Alright guys, so that's it for the market focus. That's it for the weekly pick, and hopefully we'll get some trades coming in next week. And as usual guys, stay patient, trade consistently. See you during the next one. Bye for now.